Hi everyone, I'm Cameron from the expert circle at Kontent.ai. We're always looking for opportunities to share our inside knowledge and experience with content management, and that's why I'm here today to talk to you about integrating Kontent.ai with your tech stack. I'll talk you through the role and benefits of Kontent.ai in your tech stack, discuss our key integration points, and demonstrate their capabilities based on some common scenarios. Let's dive in. Kontent.ai is likely at the core of your digital experience, acting as the single source of truth for your content across all the channels and services that interact with it. One major benefit of Kontent.ai in this context is its flexibility. There's no vendor lock-in or closed ecosystems. With its API-first approach, Kontent.ai can integrate with a wide range of services, meaning you can choose the ones most suitable for your specific needs. You can also change these tools as needed without worrying about impacting your content or migrating to a whole new ecosystem. There are 4 major integration points in Kontent.ai that together address most common integration scenarios. These are the Delivery API, which is the primary avenue to deliver content to your apps and services. The Management API, which is great for automating content management and operations. Webhooks, which are useful when you need to trigger a response to certain events with your content, such as a new item being published. And custom apps and elements, which allow you to extend Kontent.ai's authoring experience and provide access to external apps and services directly through the UI. In this video, I'll be demonstrating some of the capabilities of the Delivery API and the Management API, using the example of Karma Health, a fictional healthcare organization and platform. Karma Health are in the process of moving to Kontent.ai as part of their efforts to rejuvenate and expand their digital presence and better connect with their clients. First, let's take a look at the Delivery API. The Delivery API's main focus is serving your content to your delivery channels. This will often be a website or an app, but since it isn't locked in to any particular channel, you can use the Delivery API as a data source for any services, integrations, or delivery channels that need to work with or distribute your released content. The most widespread use case for the Delivery API is serving content to your website. So I'll use this for a demonstration. Let's consider this scenario. Dave is a new member of the development team at Karma Health, and as part of their migration to Kontent.ai, he's been tasked with connecting their new preview site to their Kontent.ai project using the preview functionality of the Delivery API. Fortunately for Dave, the development team has already done most of the work of building the new preview site, and he just needs to connect it with Kontent.ai. In the code for the landing page, he has a create client function to retrieve a landing page content item, but it needs an environment ID and API key from Kontent.ai. This function is built from the create delivery client function provided by Kontent.ai's delivery SDK, which makes working with the Delivery API much easier. Dave logs into Kontent.ai, where a testing environment has been set up for him. In environment settings, he finds and copies the environment ID, which he then saves as an environment variable in his app. He then goes back to Kontent.ai, and in project settings, will create a new API key. Since he wants to preview content, Dave is going to create a Delivery API key. First, he needs to give the key a name. He can see that both he and his project manager have access to this key. Because he wants to preview content, he'll select Content Preview. And since he's only interested in his testing environment at the moment, he'll scope the key only to that environment and then save his changes. This generates the new key, which again he will copy and save as an environment variable. It's important to note here that API keys should always be protected to prevent unauthorized access to your content. That's why we're using environment variables in this scenario. Now that he's supplied this information, Dave can run his app locally to test content retrieval. His app is running as expected. And back in Kontent.ai, he can find the landing page content item to double check the content matches what is being displayed on his website. Because Dave is in this testing environment, he can change this content to test his preview site without worrying about impacting any live services. Once he changes this headline, he can refresh his website and see the change reflected. Since we're demonstrating a preview site, There's one extra layer of integration I'd like to show off here, although it's not directly related to the delivery API. In Kontent.ai, you can connect your external preview site directly into your project, so your editors can preview their changes while they're working without leaving the UI. Let's see how Dave sets this up. In environment settings, Dave will go to preview URLs. He wants to set up a preview URL for the landing page content type. So when he goes to set up his new preview, he selects that type from the drop-down menu. Behind the scenes, Dave has already deployed his site, and he can use its URL here as the preview URL for the landing page. Once his changes are saved, he can go back to his landing page content item. Now, with the item open, he can click the preview icon and see what the content item looks like on his website without leaving the UI. Again, Dave can make some changes to the content item to make sure they're reflected in the preview. It's also possible to set up auto refresh for this preview, but hey, it's Dave's first day. Maybe he can tackle that tomorrow. Enter Dave's colleague, Corinne. She's part of the content team at Karma Health, who's been asked to test working with the new preview site Dave just set up. Conveniently for us, Corinne likes her browser to be green, so it should be easy to tell them apart. Corinne wants to get straight to work, putting the finishing touches on a new article she's working on, explaining the benefits of the personalized nutrition services Karma Health offers. She sees that her article is almost complete. She just needs to add the introduction, which she can generate using the native AI features of the platform. Now that her article is ready, she'd like to feature it on the service's landing page. She previews the existing website and decides she'd like to replace the existing article about avocados with her new article. She adds her new article to the featured content section, then removes the avocado article and moves her new article to the top to be featured prominently. She can then preview her changes. She can see that her new article is prominently featured on the landing page, and she can also open the preview site and view this directly. She hasn't needed any intervention from Dave to get her new article on the website. Now, personally, this is one of my favorite things about Kontent.ai. Thanks to an API-based approach to content delivery, with a bit of well-designed code, content editors don't need to rely on developer intervention to release new content. But this isn't the only benefit of an API-first approach to content. We just saw Dave connect a new website to an existing project in Kontent.ai, with no impact on the existing content, no migration, and no special configuration required in Kontent.ai. And the same will be true in the future if he ever needs to rebuild the website or connect other delivery channels. All he needs is the environment ID and an API key to serve content wherever it's needed. Now, let's take a closer look at the Management API. The Management API is focused towards content management and operations. It allows for retrieval, updating, and creation of content, publishing and unpublishing, managing project structure, user roles, and a lot more. For most scenarios involving automation, migration, or any kind of external content management, the Management API will be your tool of choice. So let's check back in with Dave, who's been testing some applications of the Management API. Karma Health are planning a series of workshops and seminars as part of a new initiative to engage with their community and reinforce their position as industry leaders. There will be events run by both different divisions within Karma Health and many external practices, institutes, and businesses. Dave has been asked to update the Kontent.ai project so that information about these internal and external vendors can be displayed on their website. Dave's first task is to import the contents of a spreadsheet that contains information about the internal vendors or teams that will be contributing to and hosting some of the upcoming events. He's prepared 2 migration scripts to accomplish this, beginning with a script to create a new content type in Kontent.ai. Back in his testing environment, he can see that he doesn't have an existing content type that's appropriate for the new internal and external vendor information he needs to include. Let's take a look at his first script. He's creating a new management client from Kontent.ai's Management SDK and using its included methods to create a new vendor content type. This new content type will have 4 elements for the vendor's name, website, email, and some information about the vendor. Once he runs this script, he'll be able to check back in his testing environment to confirm the new content type has been made. You can see his new vendor type in his content model. And you can also see that the 4 elements have been successfully created. Dave's second script is a bit more complex. This script needs to extract the content from the spreadsheet, and for each entry in the spreadsheet, it then needs to first create a content item, and then create a language variant connected to that item, which contains the actual content. This is because in the Management API, what we would see in the Kontent.ai user interface as a content item is actually 2 different objects. First, there's the content item, which is something of a wrapper object that contains system information and identifiers. Then you have language variants, and these are what house the actual content. These will be connected to the content item, and this is how several different language versions of a content item can all exist within the same content item object. Dave's script first converts the data of the spreadsheet into JSON format, which is the format the Kontent.ai APIs use to send and receive data. For each entry in the spreadsheet, and then creates a content item with a name based on the supplied name in the spreadsheet and an external ID that also matches that vendor's name. Once that content item is created, his script then creates a language variant, attaching it to that content item using the external ID he provided, and supplies the values for each of the elements, in this case being the vendor's name, website, email, etc. Again, once Dave runs this script, he can pop back into his testing environment to confirm the new content items have been created successfully. In his testing environment, he can see that several content items have been successfully created based on the information from the spreadsheet. He can also see that the different elements of the content item have been populated with the information from the spreadsheet. Note that the About Us field here is empty, as no values were supplied in the spreadsheet. This will be Corinne's job to fill in later. With the internal vendors handled, Dave now needs to develop a solution for handling information from external vendors. Karma Health has decided that the best approach for them is to make use of one of their existing service providers, FormStack. A form will be sent to the participating vendors, and the information returned should be used to populate new vendor content items in Kontent.ai. To aid in his testing, Dave has set up his own FormStack account and created a replica of the form that will be sent to the vendors. In FormStack, he's configured a webhook to trigger whenever the form is submitted. And he's created a simple webhook server to listen for the webhooks from FormStack. We can see in his server script here that he's using a very similar approach to his migration scripts and has created 2 functions, one to create a content item and one to create a language variant and attach it to that content item. Then we can see when his server receives the webhook from FormStack, it extracts the data from the form and then using that data calls the 2 functions we just discussed to create the content item and populate it with the content from the form. To test this approach, Dave is running his server locally and exposing it using ngrok, and he can now test what happens when he submits a form. With his server running, Dave can submit a test form and see the new item created in Kontent.ai. Note that this new item is in a different workflow step to all of the existing items. This is also something Dave included in his script using the Management API. As his script creates the language variant for each of these items, it moves it into the review step. Dave knows that when these forms are sent to vendors, all of the fields will be marked as required. And so when the new vendor items are created in Kontent.ai, all of the elements should be filled out. Therefore, those items can be moved straight to the review workflow step so that when Corinne starts her work, she can easily see what items are waiting for review and which items need to have content added. This is another small way that a thoughtful approach from Dave can improve efficiency in content operations at Karma Health. Dave has shown us how to connect Kontent.ai to external data sources, both as a single point in time import of content from a file like a spreadsheet, and also ongoing content creation through connecting to an external service like FormStack. This also demonstrates something I mentioned earlier in the video as one of the major benefits of Kontent.ai, flexibility. Thanks to Kontent.ai not locking you into particular vendors, Karma Health was able to choose the solution that met their needs. They can import content from existing documents and spreadsheets where that makes sense, and integrate with an external service rather than hosting forms on their own website or creating a vendor portal. In all these scenarios, we've seen Kontent.ai at the core of Karma Health's content operations and digital experience. We've seen that Dave can focus on the work of development, and his colleague Corinne can focus on her work of content creation without needing Dave to repeat the same work to get new content released. And of course, we've seen the flexibility of Kontent.ai in enabling Karma Health to find the approaches that work best for them. I'll wrap this video up here, but keep an eye out for part 2, where I'm going to discuss 2 more integration points of Kontent.ai, webhooks and custom apps and elements. Thanks for watching.